Well, this is Baruch here. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and here we are on Beina Mitzarim, Beina Meitzrim, and the Tiva Kavanos on the Shara Kavanos. So basically, we're going to be learning the Shara Kavanos of what the Holy ARI says with an interpretation by the Tiva Kavanos. Let's come over here and see where we left off yesterday. Yesterday, we learned an interesting fact, that in considering of the position that we're in, the consideration there, we're in a time of Avelus. That midday, not midnight, because we always think about making what we call the Tikkun Chatzos at midnight, but the midday is also the beginning of the destruction, because this is when the din starts. So imagine like the day is rising as the sun is coming up, and which reaches high noon, it starts to tilt a little bit towards the dark, just a little bit towards the dark, and come out of the fresh morning. And now the tilting starts, and at that place of the tilting is a place where we want to begin to start saying Tikkun Chatzos, even in the daytime. So that's what he said last time. Over here now we're going to go to a different kind of idea. It's a kavana. There's a little story here is that we have a family dira in a place in Israel called Nov Sion, and there's actually a few people who there are Mekubalim. I didn't realize that. And because I'm just a visitor, I come every once in a while and like to be more. And they gave me some things from the Sharabi Shul, from the Sharabi Yeshiva, and I'm going to show them to you in a minute. They are kavanos that will help us understand and keep in track of what we're doing. So let's read what we say here. So not only do we have the possibility of a beginning morning as a result of saying the Tikkun Chatzos, which is normally said at midtime, we could say it after Mincha Gedola. Gam sarak lizachav elihimane, so a person has to be careful and to hold himself back. Mila'achol b'yamim ahem, for eating on these days shum pri chadash, any new fruit. V'shelo lilvo shum levush chadash, or not put any new clothing on. Kadei shelo yitzdarach levarach alav v'bercha she'achianu, so that the person shouldn't have to come to say b'bercha she'achianu. Gomoshen Nizkar Inyan Zecha B'Sifra HaPoskim, and this is referenced in the Shulchan Aruch and other works of halacha, Poskim Achronim, and later on. So Od Minhagi Avelus. So now we're going to get it rephrased by the Tiva Gavanos. So the different customs that we apply during a period of mourning like this, B'Yamim Elu, during these days. Shlo levarach birchos she'achiyanu, so the Rav is coming to tell us not to make any brachos on she'achiyanu, any she'achiyanu al peres abegadim and chadashim, when you put on new fruit, when you eat new fruit rather, or put on new clothes. Okay, yesh limanim ela'achol pri chadash, so therefore you have to hold yourself back from eating a new fruit. O lilvosh beged chadash b'yamim hahem, hallelujah. So the idea of making sure that you never say a shehechiyanu during these 3 weeks, it also applies to Shabbos, which is a time of joy and celebration, of Rosh Chodesh Av, and also the Rosh Chodesh is coming up. Mechodesh Arizal, so the Rizal is something telling us something new. Shav Shabbasos of Yom Rosh Chodesh, and the Yom of the day of Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chav, which is in the middle of these 21 days. Gam Sarek Lakavein Kavanas Elu B'Midas. So he says that also that you're also to not be lenient in this. I'm sorry, I got ahead of this. So Yom Rosh Chodesh Av Ein Lahakel B'Zeh. There should be no lenient, should not be lenient in regards to saying She'achiyanu. Now we're going to go in a different place, which is where I really wanted to go. So he says, Kavanos, so this, let me bring this down where we can see it. It says, Kavanos brachos rishonos, so the kavana that you have in the first brachos, the ramida b'yimei bein hamatzarim. So during this period of time, when we say the Shmona Esrei, when we start into the Midah, and the brachos at the beginning, the first one, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech Elokei Avotenu. So when we come over to there, we're going to do some switching around, and this is what it's going to say. So let's come over here, and let's see, so he says, Ve'inyan zera noheg av b'shavasa v'rosh chodesh. I did that. V'gam sarek l'kaven kavanos ele v'hamida. So you should have to have these kavanos also during the standing amida. B'kol ha'yomim mahina, during all the 21 days. But the tefillas amida shel yemei bein hamitzarim yesh lahosif l'kaven od kama kavanos. So there are certain kavanos that we can do that can mitigate the danger that we're in during these 3 weeks. And these are specific to these days, these particular days. As we're going to explain. When we come to the beginning of the brachos, so let's look at the brachos avos, and let's look at it real quickly. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu ve'Elokei Avotenu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak ve'Elokei Yaakov Ha'oel Hagadol Hagibor, etc. Like that. That is the first bracha. Bring this back over here. So he says like this. He says Bebirchas bracha rishona b'chavaya the chasimas habracha. Now that refers to the chavaya that comes at the end of the bracha, and that's on Magen Avraham. Or he says, let me see. Yeah, here it is. Melech Ozeo Mashiach Magen Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avraham. So in that bracha, there's something special that we're supposed to do, and please tell me what it is. So he says like this. He says, the kaven shetayir zu havaya. So the concept is like this, that the havaya itself is actually the utter essence of the flow of light from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu towards us. But the light itself is refracted through the prism of letters. And when they come out on the other side, they're different. So you have the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Let's suppose that name is shining. So it's shining like this, El Tumurah, so it shines into its switch, into replacement. Hayotzes Mechilef Osya Shalavanecha V'hi Tedhar. So let me explain this a little bit. Let's read the Tiv. We'll explain it, and then I have a little something I can bring. Bebracha Rishona, in the first bracha, b'chavavaya the chasim is a bracha, the vaya that we say when we conclude the bracha, which I think is Magen Avraham. The kaven shem tidhar. There's a name here. Now, how do you get to this name? And I'm going to show you. This is something that I got from the Sharabi yeshiva in Jerusalem. He shows it right here. And when you say Magen Avraham, the idea is that Sheta'ir, this name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, El Tumuraso into its switch, which is this name Tidhar, Osya Shalafonov. In other words, let's take the Havaya. The first letter is a Yud. So we're going to take the letter before it that comes before it, there's going to be a test. The next letter is a Hey. The letter that comes before it in the Aleph base is going to be a Dalet. And then the Vav is the first letter that came before, the letter that came before that is going to be a Hey. And so then the last letter, which is a Hey, the last letter is going to be a Dalet. Now, we're going to see how in other words, the letter that comes before the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is going to be a new name. We're going to reverse the name, or we're going to change the name. What does this do? That the light, which is normally refracted and comes straight down to be Yud-Kei Vav, is now hidden inside of a different kind of light, because the letters themselves hold the light. So if the light comes in the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it comes in the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, comes into the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it's going to be then shining into this switched name. And that takes place at the bracha called Magen Avraham. Now let's go on a little bit more in the words of the Tiv, and we're going to read it. It says, Bebracha Rishona, B'chavaya the Chesimas HaBracha, the vaya that you say, the Chesimas HaBracha, which is the bracha of Magen Avraham, Yekaven Shen Tidhar, Tadhar, and I pronounce it. You should have the kavanah for this name. Shu Hashem Hayotze Me'osios HaKodmos, which is a name that comes from the letters that come before the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Osios Shem Havaya, which is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. B'yekaven Sheshem Havaya Yoyer L'Shem Tidhar. They should have this kavanah, that the name Havaya should shine into the name Tidhar. Let's read on a little bit more. Ovavaya shall Ata Gibor. Now let's go over to Ata Gibor. Give me a second here to find it. That's Atar Kadosh. That's one of them also. But where's Atar Gibor? Atar Gibor. Now there's going to be a Havaya over here. Let's look at it real quickly. It says Atar Gibor La'elam Hashem B'chaim Mesim B'Rav Ata B'chaim Mesim Ata Rav L'Hoshia. Let's find the bracha. And it comes back over here. B'Ne'aman Ato L'Hachios Mesim Baruch Ato Hashem B'chaim Mesim. But they're going to tell you that you're going to switch this name Yud Kei Vav Kei. It has the power to be able to mafeg, in other words, to stop or to humble the dinim that are coming normally during this 3-week time. So this is something we can do in order to make it. Now, what is the change that they're asking us to make? Let's go on to the next one. He says, Uva Chavavaya Shel Ata Gibor, Tekaven Shetoyer Chavayazu El Timuraso Hayotze Mechilif Osio Shel Achrov, which is this going to be this name called Kozu. So you can move the name, that is, they switch the letters, so that on one hand, it's going through the letters that come before, and on the second hand, it's going to be changed to the letters that come after it. So let's read the Tiv, and then we'll take a look at this little thing I got from the Sharabis. But bracha shniya, and the second bracha, b'vavaya the chasim is a bracha, the vaya that comes from when you conclude the bracha. Yikaven Shem Kozu. You should have the idea of this name. What is that? Shuhu Hashem Hayotze Osios Shalachar Osios Shem Havaya, which is a name that comes from the letters that come after the name Havaya. V'yikaven. So you should have this kavana. Sheshem Havaya Yoyer L'Shem Kozu. That the name Havaya now is shining through the Kozu. In other words, you have the Havaya going through the prism of different letters. So that light is shining. The light of the Yud is now going to be shining to the Kaf. So let's take a look at it over here in our little Sharabi thing. He says that your idea is a Mechayim Mesim. So you come to the phrase Mechayim Mesim. That's the final bracha over there. So you're going to take the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is over there. Notice that the way that the Menukad is different in each case. He says it's going to be switched. So you're going to take the Yud and you're going to take it to the letter that's after it. It's going to be a Kaf. You're going to take the Hey, you're going to take it to a letter that's after it, which is going to be the Vav. You're going to take the Vav, and what's the letter after it? It's going to be a Zayin. You're going to take a Hey, and you're going to take it, the letter afterwards is going to be this Vav. So this makes the word Kazu. Okay, we're going to see one more. So let's see what the Tiv did. We do the Tiv. He says, "Bebracha shniya behavaya the chasivas habracha. Yikaven shem kozu." You should have this kavana. Shu Hashem hayotze me'osio shel achrav osio shem havaya. They come from the letters. They come after it. Yikaven sheshem havaya yoyer l'shem kozu, and that's the kavana that name havaya should now be shining into the name kozu. Now we're going to do one more. We're going to see how this one goes. The Vavai Shlishis. Now there's going to be a third Shavai. So where do we find this? So we're really right at the very beginning of the prayers. Vavai Shlishi Sheba'ata Kadosh. Now let me show you Ata Kadosh just for a second so we can see Ata Kadosh. Here is Ata Kadosh, V'Shimcha Kadosh, and so on and so forth. Come to a bracha. This bracha right here. Notice how it's menukad. This is the Matuk Medavash Siddur, which follows it's like not the Rishash Siddur, but it has a tremendous amount of Kabbalah in it. So he says that this change over here in this name. Now let's see over here in the Sharabis what they're going to say, and we'll also, maybe we should read it first. Uvavaya Shlishi Sheba'ata Kadosh. The Kavin Shetalir Zu Havaya. So the concept is that you're taking the Havaya, but now it's going to be switched because it's going to be shined into another name. Al Tamuraso, which is a replacement name, Ba'alef base, the Atbash. Now, what is Atbash? So, Vahi Matz, and it comes out to this name called Matz. So, first we'll read the Tiv, and then we'll go over what this Atbash is. Bebracha Shalishis, B'chavaya the Chasimis HaBracha, the Vaya that you say at the end of at the conclusion of the Bracha, Kavin Shem Matz. Now I pronounce it Matz because it's a powerful name, and as a result of that, many Kabbalists always abbreviate. You'll see that Chagatnai, all the different kinds of abbreviations that we have. The Kabbalists always do this, and one of the reasons is to hide the name even further. This name is hides the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. It switches it in a certain way. So we have to understand how the switch works. It works according to what is called a cipher or code, called atbash. Shuhu Hashem Yotze Mechiliv Osios Avaya Ba'atbash. This is the olam that comes out when you switch the letters around using the concept of atbash. What is atbash? So atbash is like this. If you lined up the letters from aleph to base, going from the top to the bottom. Now, I used to have some printouts of this, and I probably still do. I just don't know where they are. The atbash is to take the aleph, base, gimel, daled, and make it one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then, on the other hand, so make a column next to that, where you start the aleph at the very bottom. So it's aleph going upwards all the way till you get to the toph. So what happens like this is, let's take atbash. As what it's really saying is to take the aleph in atbash would be switched, ciphered, coded into the letter toph, because the toph, this is the first letter, switches to become the last letter. And the same thing, the second to the last, to the first, to the second letter would go to the second last letter. This is a common kind of cipher code that you find in Kabbalah. What its purpose is, I only know that its purpose is to hide and to change the transaction or the transcendence that's taking place from this Yud-K Vav-K, which is now shining into a name, which is, if you take actually the name Yud-K Vav-K and you put it, if you had them all lined up, they would come to this word, which is matz. We only pronounce it like matz. So let's take a look over here. So over here he says, and this is the shir right now, he says, if you take the last chavaya, which comes from this last bracha of Ata Kadosh, you say the chavaya, and the idea is like this. It takes place at Hoel HaKadosh, that is ta'ir, this chavaya, which is the chavaya over there, al timuraso, to its switch, which is matz, which is chiluf, which changes as a result of the atbash. This is Baruch Fleisch. Been a long lesson, but it's been a good one. Tikkun Elevator Kollel.